And
Hey, what's going on?
Sorry, go ahead.
You all right? We can edit this anyway.
Yes, okay, sorry. I didn't realize it was literally starting right then. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Eugene with Woke From Home. We got a special episode from y'all. We doing it from a live studio, and we got our girl Toyin.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, she came in.
Building.
She came in from Austin, so we can do this live and direct. Seba, what's going on?
Man, I'm excited, man. Good to see everybody.
I know.
Toyin.
Live and in the
Look at you.
No, it also is a special episode because it's our first male guest.
There it is.
A person I've known for about 10 years, just off the way of playing flag football. And, just random conversations we have. And I was like, I think I need to break the male ice with this person, especially with the topics we're going to touch on. So, Chad, what's going on? Appreciate you coming on.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Yes. No. Congratulations. I appreciate it. Yes.
I believe in fairness, okay? None of the female guests have gotten hand claps.
Amy, Antoinette, Chanello.
So we're not going to go above and beyond.
My bad.
Okay?
As a member of the
Let's
49% of Americans who's afflicted with the condition of having a Y chromosome, we will no longer tolerate.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
All right.
Well.
All right, Chad. Yeah, usually before we get going, we just have our guests, just give a little spill about themselves and if you are registered to vote.
I am registered to vote.
Okay.
At least some of us are.
Yes, I'm registered to vote. Hope everybody else is.
Are you registered or?
Hey, I'm getting them notifications on my Instagram, and I'm like, yo, do they know I haven't done it yet? Like, why are they
They're looking at you.
You're still here saying that you haven't gotten registered.
Oh, no, it's on my to-do list. But I was just like,
October is around the corner.
All right, no, we got it. Don't worry about it.
We'll do it after this.
Yo, man, this is the fight for our lives.
This is. And with that said, so I'm registered to vote. Again, name's Chad Pendarves. I'm a resident of Dallas, Texas. What else? Let's see. Y chromosome again.
I think we hear that.
Yeah, no, right?
Okay, I just wanted to establish that again. But yeah, member of SMU's Black Alumni Board, as well as a nonprofit here in the area called the Peace and Conciliation Project, where we do a bunch of different work along the lines of facilitating discussions on social issues, race issues, so on and so forth.
So that's perfect. Yeah, we got an expert on the the topic. Man said, Black Alumni Board.
It's light work.
I wanted to go to SMU, but I didn't.
That just means I have debt. That's all it comes down to.
And I'm glad I didn't.
I will say this about SMU, about going to a university in the city that you work in, that you live in. Like, there's no better way to build contacts. Like, it's incredible.
That's true.
Yeah.
That sounds so cool.
Hold on, where'd you go to school?
Let's not do this.
Oh, okay.
Look me up on LinkedIn.
That's Toyin, T-O-Y.
Don't spell it.
Shoot up the DMs on LinkedIn.
Anyway, joke's on you because my full name is on my LinkedIn.
Bro, I saw your full name on your Instagram, and I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah, O-L.
It's
enough.
All right, so man, just let's get right into it. Over the past weekend, we had a very important, probably the most important death of 2020, in my opinion, when it comes to the democracy of this country. Madam RBG, also known as Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Ginsburg.
Female feminist icon, civil rights hero.
Yep.
Anybody that claims to be a feminist, if you don't know who this person is, then now wow for your life.
Yeah.
So, if you have a credit card in your name, if you have property in your name, if you playing sports, or you coaching sports, if you got a job, this is the person that you need to give props to.
Yeah.
Not even only as a woman, but as any type of
just a person.
Minority, honestly. She's the one that had your back when you didn't even know it. We'll let our feminists in the house go ahead.
No, men can be feminists.
Everybody's
too.
a feminist.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
But
so are you saying you're not a feminist?
No. We've already established that I'm all for the empowerment of women. So
I don't think there's much more that you can say as far as her impact for women, but just in general. I think, you know, you had in her someone that was really fighting for, I think, the truth and the heart of democracy. But I mean, I think we all saw this coming. Like, she was very elderly. We knew that she was, you know, holding on to the very end. I think it's very appropriate that they made a movie about her, her biopic, before she passed and everything like that. But I mean, I'm really concerned for what the future has to hold and what it looks like. I really hope. I know that in situations where we had a conservative judge that passed before a new president was elected, there was a lot of calls for, you know, waiting and holding that nomination for the next president. And I really hope that we can somehow prevail in this area as well. But I know that already, you know, the same people that were calling for, you know, abstaining from appointing a new judge have already started flip-flopping and saying that we need to fill this space. And you know, because because the Supreme Court is a lifetime appointment, it's really important that we get someone that is going to fight for people, all people, not just for their own kind, which I think that a lot of conservative judges, male judges, very much fall into that. And as a woman, I think a lot of men fail to understand the issues that women face because this is a patriarchy. So regardless of race, you have that power dynamic that's happening and you're benefiting from that system. And to have her there fighting for women, for the rights of women to be able to, you know, live as free citizens. I mean, we don't have that voice. I mean, there's other women that are in the Supreme Court that are pro-women, but, you know,
she was the first.
Yeah.
And
she really fought and she really pushed the boundaries. And I mean, it's tough.
Yeah. Chad?
Man, I think it's particularly tough when you consider like the work she actually put in to hang on. Seeing these pictures of her on yoga balls and whatnot, lifting weights, and, you know, meanwhile it's the middle of a pandemic and I'm like, shoot, I ain't really hit the gym or anything in a minute. So what you said at the top, this is certainly the most consequential death.
Yeah.
Particularly for this period of time that we're in right now, some X amount of 40 to 46 days until the election. And to Toyin's point, it's kind of funny how the energy changes up, right? When I guess you would normally say it's no fun when the rabbit has the gun, but this is like the hunter getting another gun, I guess.
You know, I've never heard that. It's no fun.
It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun.
I like that.
Yeah, that's when it turns around. But
I mean, there's another one with Snoop. Ain't no fun.
You know what I mean? Hey, it's 2020. I'm not trying to get into anyone else's podcast. Do not let me be the first male guest in the last.
I'm laughing, but I'm gonna have to Google that right now.
Don't. Listen. It was a different time.
I'm gonna Google it right now.
I'll put you on after we get off.
But no. In all seriousness, you also brought a point. I mean, you know, I identify as a feminist as well, but far be it from me as a man to tell any woman, you know, who they should look up to and who they shouldn't. But her impact on this culture, on this country, is undeniable. And even the symbolism of her just holding that position for little girls of all races and ethnicities and backgrounds to be able to look to. To have a record that would seemingly have consistently been on the right side of history. That says a lot, and I think that says a lot in today's day and age, and she'll greatly be missed. So rest in power to her, and as you had said on a previous episode, as we all know from NIP, the marathon continues.
Man. I think you guys have said everything. I think kind of what we already know is that Trump is going to put up a nominee. What we already know is that the Republicans fight dirty. What we already know is that if you're a Democrat or a liberal or whatever, if that's how you identify, then like take notes, right? Like in 2016, we should have taken note of what they were going to do when she was like something was going to happen in this term that was going to throw off the balance of the court. And that kind of brings up the point that we made, you know, 3 episodes ago about the about the age limit, man. Like, it's wild that her, like, this singularly, her death is literally the most important thing to happen to this democracy. Like, one single person's passing, it will reshape what this country's going to be for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
And it's happening on Trump's watch.
On Trump's watch, right? So he gets, and you know, there's some stories you can go back and read about, you know, 2012, 2013, when there was like this big push to have her resign in 2012, right? 2013, because we kind of saw the path, right? She was already having a little bit of health issues. Mm-hmm. She was strong. Her brain was strong. Her mind was strong. She was still like the gatekeeper for the liberal side of the court. But, you know, the writing's on the wall, right? You don't know in 2012 if Obama's going to win. Once Obama wins, then you need to start making plans to solidify your legacy. Obama doesn't have a legacy on the court now. He was president for 8 years, right? And so now he didn't get to replace RBG. Merrick Garland, like the justice that died on his term that he should have replaced, didn't get confirmed by this Senate, right? And so now a president, you know, we've had 3 Democratic presidents since, we've had 16 years of Democratic presidents since 1990, but the country doesn't look like that, right? And now if Trump gets his nominee, it's going to be 6'3" conservative liberal, right? So the future of the country doesn't look like the country that we're in. And all of this, I'm saying, this is a long way of saying, this is not we celebrate American idealism, but this can't be the answer. Like, we are not as good as we think we are if this is the case. If the court is a 67%? I don't know, my math is a little funny, but 67% of the court doesn't represent the rest of the country. Wow. You know what I mean? And that's going to be that case until somebody else dies or resigns, and they don't resign.
And they don't resign.
They die. They
die
die sitting at that seat.
Yep. So
because I think they feel like it's up to them. Yeah. Because it is a lifetime appointment to get to that place in your career to where you would even be a name that would be thrown into the ring for a Supreme Court justice. And these people, I don't think they're all bad. I think they're idealists, but their idealism is informed by their own experiences and worldview.
Yeah, for sure.
That doesn't necessarily update as quickly as we update, right? In the country itself, right?
But some of these people, you also got to realize that the political side, where it's almost like you have to hold the power for whatever party that you represent. Like, some of these people, they're just there just so they can uphold the power of the Republican or Democratic Party, whoever's in charge.
Yeah.
Like,
one thing that people should consider real quick, though, is that, like, these are these people's jobs. And like most people who have a certain job, whether we should do this as Americans or not, but our society kind of conditions us to where your identity begins to be shaped by the position that you hold, like the job that you have.
Right.
So these people are not excluded from that. Like, we may have all the different ideals of how they should operate and how they should move. And like when you mentioned possibly resigning in 2012, schematically, like, that's an excellent idea. Yeah. But unfortunately, we're sports fans, everybody in here, I'm sure. It's no different than one of your favorite athletes or one of your favorite entertainers, like, not hanging it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because it's what they know. It's what they've done. It's who they have become, who they are.
Yeah.
You know, make no mistake, it isn't just about holding up the idea. Like, if we look at the right, or conservatives and Republicans as the opposition, it isn't so much that they stay in those positions to uphold that. These people believe what they believe in every bit as much as we believe in what we believe in, right? Yeah. Now, they may be wrong. They are wrong, spoiler alert. But the fact of the matter is, like, they believe in that, and they believe in it to their dying day. Like, somewhere, that person may not be on the Supreme Court right now. We'll see what happens. But please believe there's a conservative judge that's willing to put in the same kind of work RBG was putting in with her trainer and everything else. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they have their same people who are, you know, you hear people on the left who are wanting to maybe kind of Weekend at Bernie's RBG or whatnot. Like, let's just keep her around. There are people on the right that want to do the same thing.
Yeah,
they want to do the same thing. So, again, it kind of leaves us in the position that we're in now. But
I mean, I feel like so when we're getting pregame margaritas. And you mentioned something that like I hadn't thought about, right? And when you said something to the effect of like, there's no job that should have a lifetime appointment.
No. Forgive me, I can't remember who said it real quick, whether it was Toyin, whether it was Eugene, but yeah, the way humans operate, at least this model, this beta, whatever version of humanity we're on right now, or even more specifically as Americans, because a lot of this is how our society conditions us. We are not conditioned to update with the times. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So much of the social struggle that you see now has to do with a great part of our nation not wanting to update with the times. We have a president who ran on not wanting to update with the times. That's the whole point of MAGA. Yeah. Like this romanticized notion of going back to like the 50s and this place that was so great for so many. Obviously, everybody in this room right now and people who look like us, not quite. Toyin, for people of your gender, not at all, right? But again, like humans are not equipped to update with the time. So listen, in 1783 or whatever the Constitution was ratified, that might have been a wonderful idea. In 2020, I can't think of a damn position, certainly not within one of the three branches of government, but I can't think of any position where somebody should be around the whole time.
And it makes sense when at that time in the 1770s for them to have said like, yeah, we should have a lifetime appointment because they were 13 colonies fighting the tyranny of the British. And so it makes sense for them to say like, oh, this is what we're going to do. Or maybe this was the Constitution, not 1770. That's the Declaration of Independence, dates, whatever. But, it makes sense because they were all kind of in one accord fighting for the same thing, which was freedom from the British, an enemy.
Right.
Today, we are completely free within our own borders. Number one power in the world, right? But allegedly, watch out for China, Russia. But we don't have like a homogenous view about anything.
Yeah, population looks a lot different now than it used to.
A lot different.
And if nothing else, I'll charge some of that up to the game about lifetime appointments and really just the structure of our government. Mm-hmm. A lot of that was done coming off of, like you mentioned, Toyin, that was coming off of beating the British. We just won our independence from like a major world power. Yeah. Probably feeling kind of good. Like that's kind of heavy. Yeah. The world power. The sun never sets on the British Empire. Yeah. 2/3 of the world, but we got that.
Still don't.
Yeah, still don't. Still don't. I just heard the other day that like Barbados is getting rid of Queen Elizabeth. 2020, right? Yeah, but again, that just is not for today. Yeah. It's not. For so many reasons.
Look, y'all. You listeners out there clown me when I said that we need to put a voting limit, age limit.
Here we are.
Not even listeners. I clown.
But
here we are.
Now, you have how old was RBG when she got appointed?
She was
appointed in 1993, so that would have been 27
years ago.
She was 89 now.
So 63, 62.
She was already retirement age.
Yeah.
She should have already been going on vacations and taking care of her.
And putting in extra work, man.
And I don't know. It's just really, like, to me, it's just very hard to kind of connect that, right, with the, you look at the Supreme Court. It's a wonderful idea. Like it's actually like a great system of government, but they're the weakest and the strongest of the three branches, right? Because they're appointed by a president, they can stay forever. They're stronger than everybody else, right? But because they can't, they depend on somebody coming to them with a problem, so they can't, affect change in a way that's like set fast enough. Or, but their power is immense because they literally die on the bench, right? And I think that when you have a position like that, the president has a vice president, right? So like right now we're voting for Joe Biden, but part of our decision is also to vote for Kamala, right? Because we have to interpret if she's good enough to be the president as well. Right. We should have the same system. We should have the same system for when you're appointing somebody who could die on the bench, because they die in power. Yeah. And now we have to go through this rigmarole of Trump picking somebody who, you know what I mean? It's just like, yo, man, it's wild, man. Like every 2020 has made me question from scratch like all of the idealism that I ever held about this country completely. I have to re-examine everything.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Because, sorry, not to cut you off. And the Democratic Party. Like,
yeah,
the party as an institution is weak. It doesn't read the room. They should have fought like hell in 2016.
I have said it once.
Yeah.
And I will say it again. I think like people listening to this podcast, you may think that we are all like die-hard Democrats. I cannot speak for Seba. I cannot speak for Gene. I can't speak for Chad. I can speak for myself to let y'all know that I'm not blind.
Yeah.
Like the Democrat Party, they haven't done a lot because at the very core, politics is a white person's game.
Yeah.
And as a person of color, yes, you can get involved. You can be in politics, but everybody moves to the rhythm that benefits them. Period. And the way that politics is set up, the way that the system is set up, it incentivizes people to back themselves, whether you're liberal, conservative. So that's why I don't necessarily have a problem with people that are black or identify as, you know, a minority that want to align themselves with a conservative party and maybe try to get influence in that way, because the Democratic Party hasn't really delivered anything. And they really think that, oh, we're going to go put on this kente cloth and kneel. Like, they think that we're not paying attention. And I think that there needs to be more criticism because they're really not getting it done. They're not.
I thought it was Photoshop when we saw that. When we saw that,
so did I.
When we dropped that picture in our group, I was like, what? Is this real?
It's real.
Like, they can't read the room. They are so used to just automatically getting the votes from people that are the most marginalized people in society, whether they're black, whether they're Hispanic, whatever. They're so used to getting the votes that they don't feel the need to actually push for progress for any of those constituent
just
groups.
do any work besides
and we see what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, 2018, right? There's a Senate election every 2 years, right? Like, somebody's up, right? Yep. I never heard anything about the Supreme Court in 2018 from the Democrats at all, right? But at that point, like, literally, if you were in any state that was up for a Senate race, like Texas was with Beto and Cruz, right?
Yeah.
Like, that should have just been the marching orders, right? So you look at somebody like Mitt Romney, who in 2016, like, everybody calls this guy moderate. You know, Susan Collins. Like, these are moderate, reasonable people that you can just, you know, have a conversation with. They're not crazy. They're, you know, you agree with a lot of the stuff that they say. But for them, like, the singular issue that matters to them over everything is the Supreme Court, because they know the power of the court, right? And so here you go. This guy's, I saw his statement today was a word salad as to why he would, put up Trump's nominee for a vote when he didn't do that for Obama. In 16, right? Because it doesn't matter. Truth doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. No. Your life doesn't matter. I don't matter. Nothing matters except for the Supreme Court, because of the power that they know that it has. And so Democrats for the last 50 years have not seen that, have not fought on those terms. Like, we have 100 issues that we're really good at, right? But we are not good at any one issue like the Republicans are on the Supreme Court. And that's why we're going to stay steady losing, or they're going to stay steady losing, right, to kind of separate from this. I'm not a registered Democrat. But, like climate change, that's something that we could have treated climate change like they treat the Supreme Court.
Voting rights,
LGBTQ
rights,
just all of the healthcare. All of these big parts of American life. We could have treated those things like they treat the Supreme Court, and real change would have been affected. But you have the Affordable Care Act, which was a big deal. But I promise you, if a Republican wanted universal health care,
it would have happened.
It would have already happened.
With no pushback, man.
It would have already happened. But we had a Democratic House, Senate, and a president in 2008. And we have like a watered down version of it, because we're not as I don't even know what the word is.
Ruthless.
Forceful.
Ruthless. Yeah.
Political.
Try to be nice.
Trying
They play too nice.
Trying to follow the rules.
But trying to pretend that you're nice because one could argue that very few people.
Your chair is moving.
Oh, sorry. It is moving because
I've been trying to tell you,
but it's because I'm shifting in my seat.
All right, got you.
But I even forgot my mother.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say though that Barack Obama, he did have a justice that he put through.
Sotomayor.
Yeah. He was in power for 8 years, so he should have had.
But so much of it, and this is only to shoot the Democrats a degree of bail. Like coming from somebody who used to work for a Democratic member of Congress and someone who's voted Democrat throughout any time I've voted. With that said, like it is not a gang thing for me. The Democratic Party is a means to an end, as far as I'm concerned.
That's how
and frankly, since we do have this two-party system here, there just has not been, which is an entirely different point of itself, but it's trash, exactly. There's just never been somebody who has been a Republican. Like I do not identify with conservative ideals and a conservative ideology, and that's what's peddled out every time. So therefore, I'm never going to vote for somebody who's doing that. But to shoot them a little bit of bail, so much of like picking Supreme Court justices has to do with who dies when you're in office or not. To your point, Obama was in office for 8 years. Trump has been in office for 3 years and X amount of months, and this will now be his third pick, and that's because 2 people died and 1 resigned.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, it's the luck of the draw. Yeah. Now, if people really want to get political about it, then yes, maybe you could start speaking to judges and asking them to resign or leave. But the only problem that you have with that, though, is that we're well aware that this is not what it is, but the court is supposed to be absent of any politics.
Right.
But it's not.
It's not.
There's a lot of offices or departments within our government that are supposed to be absent. Supposed to be.
Right.
Right.
Listen,
but they're not.
For the right
Our
price,
AG is the prime example.
Right.
For the right price, anybody can stand for anything.
Yeah.
And anything can be politicized in this country. Those masks were politicized in this country.
They
Just saying Black lives
matter.
Just matter. Nothing more, nothing less. Just matter. Has been politicized. So
we're working with human beings. Like people can try as they might to be objective, but nobody is fully objective. No, so the whole premise of that is just stupid. So put controls in place so that you can control for literally when you have an experiment, you control for certain aspects that you already know are going to be a part of the equation. Control for the fact that people are not objective. Try as they might, and do what you got to do. I would even be more respectful of parties that said, like, if Democrats were like, listen, I'm going to need you to go ahead and resign so that we can put this person in so they can serve for the next 40 years. Yeah. Gang, let's do it. Yeah. Like, it is what it is.
I bet you they don't do it, though.
But they're not. And then the other thing, too, is I guess, if someone resigns and you have a whole, there's hearings, there's a whole, like, ratification process that you have to go through. So, you are running the risk that someone is not going to ratify your candidate. But if you have control of the House, the Senate, then do that shit. Yeah. That's the smart thing to do. Yeah. If you're going to be a politician, then be a fucking politician. Like, I feel like there's maybe so many bleeding heart Democrats that are not trying to be smart. It is. Use your head, bro. That's what the conservatives are doing.
The tough thing, though, is that the Democrats are tasked with, given our current political positioning, being the adults in the room.
Well, they need to be adults.
I get it.
They need to be children.
They need to be adults.
I get it.
You can be an adult and still be shrewd, man. I think
that's absolutely true. You just got to be more crafty, more calculated.
You calculate because that's what politics is. Good politicians are calculating
for sure,
and that's the system that we have, and that's what you need to do.
Somebody pointed out that the court would be better if it was 8 instead of 9. That if you had an even number, then somebody would have to compromise. Somebody would have to make their case.
The only problem with that I foresee is that, all right, if we got this even number of 8 and we're looking for compromise and we're hoping that there's a distribution of 4 and 4 for liberal conservative. So if we keep getting 4-4 decisions, most part, the major landmark decisions we see are 5'4",
Right.
had been 5'4".
Yeah.
Looking like they're about to be 6'3" in the wrong.
Yeah,
one.
right.
But had previously been 5'4".
Yeah.
Well, if you just have them be 4'4", then what ends up happening is it just goes back down to whatever the lower court's position was.
Basically.
And that still ends up being a matter of politics, because right now the majority of your like lower courts are probably going to be Republican held or conservative, judges. So if again you're a conservative judge, you just need the other 3 people to do that, and if it goes 4-4, boom, it just goes back down.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Listen, we just need term limits on everything.
Exactly.
And age limits on everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
When Siba was saying that at first, I thought maybe, I don't know, but as I'm starting to like really think about it,
it's
we
crazy.
got some old ass people in government.
It's crazy how it's just unfolding. Like it's been like 2, 3, 4 different occasions since you dropped it. I'm like, it just makes too much sense.
It makes too much sense.
It makes too much sense. Like how somebody 70
we don't
speaking for me? How does that even make sense?
We don't need you to
We're
be
not even
in the House of Representatives for 20 years. It's okay. Even
do
if
something
you
else.
do
Fish.
something else.
Yeah.
Golf.
They already do it on their
something
off time anyway. You can
Yeah.
do it full
Something
time.
Full time. Write a book.
Yeah.
I have one question for Siba.
Yeah.
Will you keep this energy when you're 70?
Would I do what?
Will you keep the same energy when you're 70?
Yeah, so that's a good point, right? Like,
And it's a bunch of young whippersnappers making decisions for you.
that's a great point, man. I honestly, I hope somebody plays this back for me. You know what I mean? I hope somebody's like, yo, whoa, hold on now, oh man, you said this back in 2020. But yeah, even then, right? Like when we start talking about the shape of the future of this country, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for that story to be written by 75-year-olds, 80-year-olds. It doesn't 86-year-olds like RBG was, And
Not
I
in the
think the court
that it's done so, for sure.
Yeah, it definitely not, And I think the court right now, we have Roberts and Kavanaugh I think they're the youngest, and they're both like knocking on 60, right? Yeah. So, at 60 at my company, like people are looking for their way out.
Yeah,
but these dudes are just getting started.
But at the same time, I think, if you think about some of this is kind of pop culture-y, but if you think about some of the shows that have come out recently about like extending the life of people, of human beings, like how people are living longer, they're living younger. So you have these 60, 70-year-old people that are running marathons and doing all this stuff.
Good for them.
If you think about it 20 years into the future, I think that's a very great point. Like, where would we be at 70? Like, I said this in the episode that we talked about this, that, when I'm 75, I'll be damned if somebody tells me, like, oh, grandma, or you don't know what you're talking about because you're so old. So I think there's a balance there.
There's not. I disagree.
No, I think there's a balance there in the sense that I think there should be term limits. But if you decide at 65, if I want to vote a 65-year-old into some office for 2 years, that's totally fine. It's their constituents that choose that person.
I feel like that's like, okay, so I have a compromise. But you should still
have a limit.
No, I have a compromise then. Whatever your age is, that's the percentage of the vote that you need to get to win that
I'm okay with that. So if you're 95%
of the vote. Yeah. Oh, you 65? Okay, that's fine. Get 65%.
No, I think so.
I was gonna say, unless you like your census, like if your average age is around that age, then I get that. But if you represent and the people you represent are like around your age, then okay, cool. You can be 65.
People are gonna accuse us of ageism.
No, that's fine, man. Like, look, I know it's a, and we got to wrap this up. I understand, but no one has made a credible argument to me as to why we shouldn't put a limit.
And that's fair, I think.
Can I say one thing to cap that?
Somebody's about to make an argument.
No, it ain't argument. It ain't argument. Like I said, we're short on time. It ain't argument. I promise. The energy behind all of this, like, I agree. I disagree on some of the energy. Is everybody wants to see something that's more representative of what our nation actually looks like.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is that right now, at all levels of government, it's too old and it's too white.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being white. There's nothing wrong with being old.
So white.
But like that is not what the country looks like. Now in 2020.
Too rich, too male. Too old. And if you're gonna have a country in which like real change that affects real people happens, you have to change that. You have to find a way.
I think that's a good cap.
It is a good cap.
Give me the air horns then.
Oh yeah.
What is that?
Oh my gosh! These people get in the studio tonight.
All right, so this next topic, I thought it was very spicy because I know when we brought it up, we're like, I wonder how we can attack this. But let's just dive head in. So within like the times that we're going in right now, one of the conversations I've been having, like my brother-in-law, my wife, my friends, is the whole segregation, integration, inclusion. Was it worth the trouble to be included in everything? Was the fight worth it? Because if you look at the times are now, we're included, but are we really included?
Right.
Like,
that was my question. I was like, we included everything?
Yeah.
Last time I checked,
So like,
I was included.
No, you have like the whole fight for segregation, like it's not right, this and that. So okay, so we integrated,
right.
But you still go through. I mean, you can go everywhere and you can still see like everything is still separated in a sense. Mm-hmm. Like majority of your friends, if you went to a white school, for instance, you probably surrounded yourself with majority of minorities if it wasn't black, just because you felt more comfortable.
I didn't at first. I went to a PWI and I tried to be in the group amongst the whites.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
I mean, it worked for a while, but then when stuff started to come out, because I was in college when Obama was going through presidency and stuff like that, second term, things like that. And then I was not in college, but I was still in the same college town that I was in whenever Trump was going through when it was Hillary versus Trump. And that's when I realized, like, there's people that say they're your friends and they like really F with you, but they actually don't.
Right. Yeah.
They just don't see you as black like that.
Yeah.
So
I'm not one of them.
Yeah, exactly. They don't see you as one of those. Yeah. So they're comfortable with you, but on the whole, they don't really fuck with black people like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that was when I was really opened my eyes to see, like, man, you could be a part, but you never really a part. Yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like that's my lived experience. I would really go down to my grave with that energy.
Yeah.
As far as my life so far, I just feel like no matter how in the group you are, you're never really in the group. Because when the time comes for people to pick sides, they're not going to pick your side.
No.
That has been my experience so far.
So my first question for this would be, did integration actually work?
Well, we'll start with our guest.
Yeah.
Start with me? Yeah.
Chad, what do you think?
All right. Did integration work? In the short-sighted view that it was intended to, sure. Integration, as far as what I'm more of a proponent of, I know we had discussed this previously, integration, what it truly should be, which is a two-way street, which should be more about shared resources than exclusively about busing bodies of people from one environment to another.
Right.
No, that's not at all what happened. And for those who, kind of ask the question about, well, were we better off under segregation? I think that's kind of a romanticized notion when you consider so many of the bad things that also took place. It was, in fact, not separate and equal. Right. I feel like that's a little bit of a romanticized notion, but I will say that as it went down, there's a whole generation of black doctors, black nurses, black teachers that after Brown versus Board that lost out, right? Because now we're sending kids to the white schools or the quote unquote good schools, which are really just good because they have more resources, not because they're white, not anything else. They have more resources. We missed out on that. But I am of the belief that our perspectives are better informed when you're around people who don't look like you. And you get to learn new and different things. Yeah. So I'm a proponent for integration, of course, in that regard. But as it was, done, where it was like, we're talking a little here, it was like, fine, damn, like, black kids can go to our school. Shit, like, no, there needed to be a lot more done than that. And I'm sure we'll get into why that didn't happen, and there's a whole host of reasons why.
But
it's pretty simple.
I think that if black communities that were really doing something for themselves. So you think about Tulsa, like Black Wall Street. I think that if those communities had been left alone to thrive
and not destroyed,
yeah.
then maybe we could say like segregation would have worked or it was a good thing. But as far as every example that we've seen to our history to this point, any Black community that's thriving, that has economic power, that's functioning as its own, that's successful and functioning separate from white society, they have systematically destroyed.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So we really don't have an example of a good experiment like that in this country because they don't allow them to survive. They literally choke the life out of them, or literally choke the lives out of the people to prevent them from thriving. So we don't have an option but integration, because segregation and success in segregation is not allowed in this country.
So, you know, we go to board Brown v. Board, and coming out of that whole decision, I was listening to a podcast where the Brown, who was in that case, was speaking at the University of Michigan about 5-10 years ago, and essentially she pointed out, right, that so right now, like research shows, right, like that if you're a Black, especially a Black male, right, like the singular most impactful thing for your education in elementary and middle school and high school is having a Black teacher, right? Like that's the thing that drives you towards success.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Hi, Mom.
Let's take away your control.
That's the thing. That's the thing that drives you towards just like that narrows the achievement gap like significantly, and it's simple, right? Like Black kids, when they get into white spaces, are treated like animals, you know, like they are the ones who are suspended and not given second chances. They're the ones who they're not going to throw them in gifted and talented, courses just by nature of their skin color, right? And so, you know, each year the gap gets exacerbated. So if you have a Black kid if you have a Black teacher in elementary school, that gap is never widens, right? And so what happened with Board, to your point, Chad, is that like we lost this generation of teachers, of Black teachers, right? And so it's so wild that in 2020, right, like Black kids, like as far as education is concerned, are further behind comparatively than they were in the 40s and the 50s. And the reason is if you went to school as a Black person, you essentially became a teacher or you worked for NASA or you joined the military, right? You didn't have a lot of options. And so like we had all this, the best of us became teachers. Yeah. Right. And that greatness was passed on to these kids, right? And Board v. Brown took that away, right? So they took these college educated teachers, these people who were brilliant in whatever field they were in, and they took those kids out of that environment and threw them into an environment where they were just like, sit in the back, don't make no noise, don't be disruptive. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm not going to teach you. You're not smart anyways. You're not smart enough. I don't know how to. And so, like, to me, like, that's like when I think about like the impact of integration and segregation, I'm like, I would have liked to see at that point, right, where separate but equal was being discussed, where we thought about that singular point, right? Like, is there a way
to make it equal?
To this point where it's just like, it's a two-way street. It's like, okay, that's fine. It's not just white teachers that are going to keep the job. We're going to send Black teachers to white schools where we're sending our white kids, because that's the most, like, I remember every single Black teacher that I had growing up, and they've all been impactful in just making sure that I didn't get lost. You know what I mean?
The other part of that equation also is that you could have been sending young white students to Black schools to learn from Black teachers. And when I look at what's going around in 2020 and what has been going around for decades since Brown v. Board in 54, we'd probably be in a lot better of a place from a position of like, you know, so just society as at large, if you had that, where you had white students coming into Black communities, so on and so forth. Now, why that didn't happen is obvious. Like, you didn't even want us drinking from the same water fountain as y'all. Like, the day before Brown versus the Board. So you for damn sure we're going to send your kids over to our schools. Right. But again, that's a two-way street. That's what would have been, I think, most desirable, and would have put us all at a better place. But unfortunately, it didn't work out like that. Yeah. Or has not worked out like that.
Yeah. For me, integration, it was, like you say, it was a good idea. And they just kind of threw it like, oh, yeah, you can go to our schools now. Like,
I don't even know if it's fair to call what took place integration.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping it up for integration because I'm like, no, I want to give it a bad name. But like that wasn't integration at all. Well, that was just a continuing of the same systemic injustice that takes place at a political level.
Yeah.
At schools where you're talking about healthcare, so on and so forth. Like all of that is rooted in the same kind of supremacy.
Yeah.
And it changes over time, no differently than racism has changed over time. Like you don't have the de jure, legislated segregation that you used to.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's just de facto.
Yeah. Yeah. So like for me, like they allowed us to go share spaces with other different races or whatnot. But nothing inside the actual framework of the country changed.
Right.
So what did you really do?
Can you live in those spaces?
Yeah.
That's redlining continued on.
Yeah, exactly.
Infrastructural segregation continues to this day. We look at South Dallas. That is not at all what North Dallas and Highland Park looks like.
No, it's
These
not.
people left South Dallas, right? Oak Cliff, Kessler Park, all these places where wealthy white people live. They saw black people moving up north, and they went and created their own
white flight.
Created their own, like their own community, right? Like Highland Park is its own entity, municipality inside of Dallas, right? That essentially was just like the separation, like to separate from black people.
Yeah. Like, and again, like they built all the rules. So what did you include us in? Like, you didn't change anything in the Constitution, nothing in the anthem. You still have like.
That's a good point.
Like nothing changed. Like you still have redlining. We still talked about the social economic system that's in place that still holds us down. You still have the schools that are still. You have all your black people, black and minorities in one school with no resources.
Yep.
And again, that goes back to redlining. Like if you don't have any money in your district, you're not gonna have no resources.
Yeah.
Right. And then on top of that, you still have the policing. We can go back to how policing even started, and you go to the politics. Politics, there's nothing there for us. That's why we don't see anybody of our ilk there. Right. Like there's no incentive, and like the discussion I was having with my brother-in-law is that he wants to go back. He thinks that this was a bad idea. We should have stayed separated, and my question was, okay, so if you go back, like let's say in 2020. We just go back. We separate from white people. Mm-hmm. Are you going to commit to buying black? Are you going to commit to what Malcolm X believed in, which is you build within your community and you protect it at all costs? That's what he believed in, and people didn't believe in that because they didn't believe in the protect at all costs by any means. And essentially, that's what you have to do if you want to go back to that. You have to protect your own by any means.
And people saying go back to it. I'm just trying to figure out, where are you going back to? Where is it that you're going back to, my friend?
Yeah.
Where are you going back? I mean, you talk about things like the Green Book, right? Where you have a list of places that you can stay, that you can go to, restaurants
Lovecraft.
to. Right, you have that, right? But at the same time, when we're talking about this in modern times, we're talking about, or right now in 2020, we have not seen a black community undisrupted be successful. Yeah. We have yet to see that. And I mean, just to your point about like, are you going to buy black? Are you going to do these things? Today, you have the opportunity to bank black. You have the opportunity to buy all your clothes from someone that made by someone's black. Your food, grocery stores, there's black grocery stores. We don't even go out of our way to do that now than to say that you're going to strip back all of the things that you currently. That means you can't use Amazon, baby.
No, you can't.
That's white supremacy at work.
It is.
Right. That's that is the success of white supremacy because they have convinced us, like themselves and us, right, that our proximity to whiteness is what is the answer, right?
Yes.
And so we even look amongst ourselves, look at where we grew up, where we live, even right now, right? We are like our ideas of success is just living close to white people. Like
where up north.
Everybody. Everybody that I know that has. That makes money, that has a job, a family. They're raising their family in Plano, Frisco. They're going to Wiley. All these new places that are popping up. Melissa, place I ain't never even heard of. You know what I mean? Because where your dollar and your purchasing power would go, that's a tangible way that doesn't need the government. right? To just kind of just change your small, like your circle of influence is just okay. That's fine. Move to South Dallas.
Yeah.
But all these California white people who have money and cash are buying the houses in the hoods that you grew up. That you go buy those houses. Yeah. You raise your kids
buy
there.
Back the block.
Yeah, buy back the block. You know what I mean? So, look, I don't know if I gave an answer to this question. I think that integration has been horrific.
It has been
for Black people.
But do you prefer that over going back and resegregating?
Personally, I would say like my perspective is a little bit.
Sigh.
I grew up in a Black neighborhood. Like my experience was very Black. So when I sometimes talk to some of my friends who grew up, like most of their teachers was white, so they remember their Black teachers.
Yep.
I grew up very Black.
Yeah.
All my teachers from middle school, from elementary school. You didn't even time it right, bro. It was too late. All of my teachers from elementary school to middle school were all Black. Everybody was Black. And then when I got to high school, because I went to the school I wasn't zoned to, I went to like an academy, whatever, in my district, I had more exposure to white students and I had more exposure to white teachers, but my teachers were still very diverse. I had Black teachers, I had Hispanic, Middle Eastern teachers. Like I had a little bit of everything. So for me, I was kind of like where I grew up in Missouri City in Texas, and the part that I grew up in was old Missouri City before all the white people started moving into Missouri City, or I guess moved back to Missouri City. And it was very Black. So to me, my idea of growing up, I kind of grew up segregated. Yeah. I didn't have meaningful interactions with white people until I was like 16.
Yeah.
See, if I can share some of my experience, because mine is the complete opposite. I grew up going to private schools in North Dallas my entire life, commuting from Denton to Dallas to attend those schools. And routinely at these schools, I'm one of, and mind you, the classes were like very small. My 8th grade class had like 12 people in it. So I was one of 2 Black students there. If we were talking about the whole school, which was K through 8, maybe one of like 10, 15. I think there was about 5 or 6 students in my graduating class of Jesuit. So, and with that said as well,
Jesuit.
I don't know, right?
Anybody that goes to school named Jesuit got money. I got money.
Shout out to Chad Pendarves. Wait, hold this boy down. Yo, listen.
Jesuit. Oh, boy. I ain't know that.
Appreciate y'all for making it work. No, listen. My father works for UPS. My mom is a teacher. You put them salaries together, they just busted their ass. But, but I don't even think I've ever, because I was thinking about this the other day when it was going around. I don't know that I've had the pleasure and the luxury of being afforded a Black teacher ever. Dang. Male, and that's including college, including the victory laps I took before finishing college, and my master's program. I don't think I've had one Black professor or teacher in my life other than my mother, who's a Black teacher, and her mother before.
I went to Cedar Hills, half Black, half white. We had one of the top public school programs when I was there, and I don't really remember any of the Black teachers outside of, if they were a teacher, they were also a coach. Outside of that,
thank you. Yeah, so not counting that.
They were white.
I will say though, but you having a Black mother that was a teacher is impactful in that conversation.
But I will say, like, there is something powerful about having Black teachers, because in my mind growing up, I didn't see, and I don't know, I'd have to survey, people that I went to school with, but I don't really think, like, with the people that I talked to growing up, there was no sense of like a Black career versus a white career. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I was in school, like I didn't really feel like, oh yeah, white people do that and Black people don't. Like there was no sense of that, because in my neighborhood growing up, we had people that their parents were accountants, or just it kind of ran the scale of lawyers, and then we had teachers and we had truck drivers. Like there was just a little bit of everything. Right. So I didn't really grow up with this notion of like Black people can do this, white people have these careers. It wasn't until I got to high school where I was like, oh, there is really a divide here. Because I mean, you go to the grocery store in my neighborhood, it was all all Black and Hispanic. Some Middle Eastern people. Like it just I did not have interactions with white people until much later in my life. So
okay.
I mean, I feel like that, but that's kind of like that kind of informs like our, like even without ever hearing from your teacher or from your principal or whatever, like just the structure informs white supremacy. You know what I mean? Just the structure of what we're dealing with kind of informs the fact that, you know what, why have other communities kind of figured it out, right? Like, why does every major city have a Chinatown that does, you know, that they get their food from Asia,
they will
right
drive
there?
to Chinatown.
And everybody will drive there and get their stuff. They'll, you know, they'll go relax. Their hangout spots are out there, and even if they live in other places, like their dollars are spent in these, you know, in these areas, and you know, you just kind of, you know, to go back to your point, Toyin, is that anytime that something like this has been attempted by Black people, it's just been shut down, right? Like, that just by one way or the other, whether it's not getting funding, right? Like, just making it very, very expensive to borrow while Black. That's something we don't talk about very often, but it's very hard to do business when you're paying, when half of your payment's going to interest. You know what I mean? And you're getting that interest because you're Black. You know, like, that's just that's crazy. You know, and so, like, there are these systems that are trying to kind of are battling us, right? But there is a simple solution to this, right? Like, all of us who are taking our monies and buying our $300,000-$400,000 houses up north don't have to do that. Like, that's a choice that we are making, right? And we could just make a different choice, you know? And maybe I have the privilege of not having to make that choice because I don't have kids. Because ultimately, you know, you're thinking about your kids.
But I think another aspect of people making that choice is, I think, like, the coordinated campaign against Blackness in this country is very strong. It's
effective.
It's effective in the sense that, you know, you might have money and say, okay, I'm not going to go up north. I'm going to come, and then your own, you know, family members or friends who are also Black are saying, well, those places aren't safe.
Exactly.
So have you been here?
There's crime. There's so much crime. Those places aren't safe. Well, the schools aren't good, and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, that's all on purpose. Like, the idea that there's more crime. Well, there's more cops there because there's more Black people, so they're coming to our neighborhoods more. So they're over policing is also another huge tactic against scaring people away from places that we could actually improve with our dollars.
Or you got, like, even your schools. You got schools that are majority minority teachers, majority minority students, and you're getting tested by white people. Right. It's standardized testing, which is
wild.
Jimmy has 7 fishes when he goes to the dock with his dad.
Yeah, so why do
Jimmy ain't never gone fishing with his dad.
What do you expect? What do you expect the outcome to be for these stupid ass tests that you're making these schools take?
And I think exactly what they wanted to be.
And people have talked about that, and there's been no meaningful movement towards changing any of that.
No, and then you got the actual bodies that control the grading of your school, which are all white.
School boards, everything.
Everything is white, man. They're like, even me going back to high school, I didn't really know about historically Black colleges. The only one you knew about was PV. They came to our school. You have all these other white schools, and you have PV that's just there by themselves. Not even TSU, which is 20 minutes beside PV. And you didn't hear about it. And if you did hear about, oh no, it's not a good school, you should go to one of these. That's just like another form. Is like, if I would have been exposed to historically Black colleges, I would have gone. Like, we had a mutual friend that we graduated with. He went to Howard for dental school. Like, when I went up there, I was like, why did I go here? This is all.
Even the process of accreditation is.
Well, it is tough.
It's biased.
I will say this last thing, Chad. I'm gonna let you get the last word in because you're our guest, but. As Africans, so a lot of, you know, us three here are African. Like, one problem to this, you know, one part of this problem is the fact that as Africans, like, that you find that our parents have identified with whiteness much more than they've identified with American Blackness, and that's part of the problem, right?
They
like,
were colonized.
I mean, they were colonized, and that's colonization at work. That's white supremacy at work. But this idea that you left your people and came here and saw people that look like you and just like, I can't fuck with them. We're gonna fuck with it with old Harold at the job. It's like, come on, man.
And what's funny is that, to circle all this back around, is that we have a land that we can go build on ourselves. But yet we want to fight here just for a simple right of existence. Why don't we go back and go build back at home?
We don't have enough time to unpack that conversation.
No, exactly.
Before Chad gets the last word, America is ghetto.
I will be third world country.
Y'all already know. Lagos, December 2020. You already know.
2020 in COVID?
You already know I'm going to be in Nigeria. Shout out, I'm there.
The border's open, so we can go.
There's a whole country in Africa I'm named after.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Landlocked nation, but we all right. Yeah, funny because they speak French. We were talking about speaking French earlier. I guess that would have helped. Man, for the last word, I'll say this. So much of what we discussed today, as it pertains to politics, as it pertains to segregation, our schooling, our individual experiences growing up, so much of this is a reflection of the system that's currently in place and the structure that is in place. It emanates to every part of society, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are structural issues. These are systemic problems. It's not a binary of good guys versus bad guys. This is stuff that affects everyone, even people who think it doesn't affect them.
Yeah.
So with all of that said, the only real way to produce change, and this is not me advocating that people vote to keep the system as is. No, short of us all packing up and leaving and going elsewhere, or making this look real ugly, which I don't want to see. Like, it can be fun to talk about or whatnot, but people have wives, kids.
Right.
Yeah. Like, nah, I don't want to see any of that. So I would just encourage everybody, please go vote.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't see somebody on the ballot right now who reflects your thoughts and opinions, then consider, do you want a movement or do you want a monument? Vote for the person that's going to allow your movement to persist. And while that person who might not be the most desirable choice for you, Joe Biden, understand that you can still play a role in holding that person accountable. And this is very much a long-term thing, but holding that person accountable, holding that party accountable, if we're talking about Democrats, and from there, like, whether it's you running yourself or whether it's somebody else that you support, like, building the change from the inside in.
Yeah.
Because none of this change is just going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to do it. Or, look, if we all want to pick up and go, please let me know. Tell me 15 minutes ahead of time. So I'm actually on time.
We got land.
Let me know which one it is. But if we're going to stay here, vote.
Yeah.
And vote after that.
Yeah, I that was a good last word.
Yeah. It's a move. What was it? That's our show title. What is it?
A movement or a monument.
Movement or monument. That's dope, man. So this has been our latest episode of Woke from Home. We appreciate our guest, Chad. Last name?
Thanks for having me. Pendarves.
Pendarves,
Where
man.
can people find you?
Let's see. Throwing up occasional thirst traps on Instagram. And you can find me on Facebook at just my name.
Yeah, we'll tag it on our Instagram at @woke_from_home, at Twitter at @woke_from_home, at Facebook. Still don't have one. That's Toyin's task. We'll get that set up. Yo, appreciate it. Keep sending them DMs. Keep talking to us. We love y'all. Till next week.
Yeah, man. You can't spell truth without the Ruth.
Oh, my girl RBG.